Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of LMScast. My name is Joshua Millage. This beautiful man over here is Christopher Badgett. And today we're going to talk about why. And three things in particular. We're going to talk about why e-learning matters, the opportunity of today's e-learning market, and the opportunity to have global impact with online education. So Chris, let's start it off. Why in the world does e-learning matter?
E-learning matters because education is changing. Higher education is what it is. There's a lot of pain points out there in what people are learning in terms of not being able to get a job, or the system isn't able to keep up with the rapid rate of change in today's world. And when I look around and I look at people, one of the things I see is a gold mine inside of people who have all these unique experiences and skills where everybody can become a teacher and help people, and also build a profitable business around that. Mm-hmm. That is why e-learning matters today, and we're at the perfect nexus of technology and connectivity where people can build these platforms and change the world and build a business.
I love that, because I think in the last 10 to 15 years we've really seen the democratization of business. We've seen a lot of online entrepreneurs because the ability to build an online storefront has gotten cheaper. The ability to market a business has gotten cheaper. All of these things have gotten cheaper, and we've seen that first revolution happen through the business entrepreneurial space, and it's exciting to see it now happen to the education space. It's never been a better time to educate your following or your tribe. It's never been an easier time to distribute that education using tools like open source pieces of software like WordPress. You know, a few $100s you can get a beautiful plugin like the one we're creating, and you can go and just distribute it, put it in the pipes of the internet, and you can have students from all over the world. And I think what's interesting is we always talk about, growing up, I grew up in a private school, and it was a great school, and one of the things that my teachers are always trying to instill in us is you have the opportunity to change the world. One way to do that is, teaching. Look what we're doing. And, it's like kind of ingrained in me that education was this catalyst for change. And I do believe that. I really believe that. And now we have the beautiful chance to do that on a worldwide scale. And I think, you've got some numbers, or you've done some research on really what the true financial opportunity is. Because I think, my mom was a first grade teacher. My dad was a college professor. So I see what teachers have made. It's not a whole lot, But I think that's also changing. If your education's good, there is an actual financial gain that can be had from this. So what are some of those numbers?
Well, probably to frame it in from the past, if you look at the real estate crash that happened in 2008, as that market was tanking, online learning was booming. Some of the major e-learning platforms, more traditional online versions of college classes through companies you've seen like Phoenix or other, private enterprise, but also within the regular college sector, e-learning is just taking off.
Yeah.
And now we're, 6 years out from that. That power to build those kinds of platforms can come to the individual.
Right.
And on elearning.com, I believe is the URL, it's a e-learning statistics site. In 2014, the e-learning industry was at $56.2 billion. And that's billion with a capital B. And that's expected to double this year by 2015.
Wow.
So there's just a huge rise in this opportunity, and with tools like WordPress, where you have the goal of democratizing publishing, and with just the tools available to do e-commerce online and collect money, those platforms are growing up. So WordPress is no longer about just publishing, but it's about getting more focus. Okay, we can reach the world. Now let's curate our content, let's organize it, and let's help people reach the desired goals and outcomes and skill sets that they want to have. So that is here too, and that is why there's kind of a hockey stick of growth in e-learning, and people are hungry. The economy is changing, and people are looking for, it's constricted in some ways, but in other ways, if you, like you mentioned, the teacher salary, so if you're limited to the four walls in your classroom and whatever the state dictates as your salary, you're just talking to 20 to 100 people in a room. But the true power of the internet to reach the entire world is amazing. So if we're talking about income opportunity, that's where it gets really interesting. And it also gets really interesting in how you can focus on really tight, specific skill sets and life experiences that you want to share and help others accomplish.
I think it's great. It's just the perfect time. I mean, it's what's interesting to me is people that never thought they could be teachers can also be teachers too. So I imagine we have a lot of different people listening right now, and you have people who have an LMS or learning management background. You've got maybe current teachers or retired teachers, and you might have just the random person who found this podcast who's like, I don't even think I have anything valuable to teach. And the thing is, you don't actually might not know. I mean, put what you're passionate about online. It's so cheap to do that. You can do that with, a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro with your little cam that we're using to do the podcast here. Put it in a WordPress site, put it out there, connect with people. I mean, you have an incredible background in learning, not just in the learning management space, but you actually have some courses too that you've shared on gardening, woodworking. I've seen. There's probably a lot of other ones, knowing you, Chris, that I don't know about too. But I mean, just from a high level, what's that done for you as a person, sharing that knowledge? I mean, I'd love to hear just like the intrinsic value as well as what it's done from a relationship standpoint with people, and maybe even financial. I know you've told me it's provided some cool income streams too. Absolutely.
I think one of the biggest hang-ups to get over when you become a teacher is to get over the I have to be a 10. You just have to be one step ahead of someone behind you and to be able to help them, and that's all there is to it. So once you get past that hang-up, you can really create content and find your market. You don't have to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
You just have to help people, and that also just comes with age.
Yeah.
You can and experience. But to get into, let me give you a couple examples. You can do free e-learning. You can do paid e-learning. For me, my primary source of income is custom WordPress development, design, marketing, consulting. And you and I work together in that capacity in another business. But the whole way that I found my tribe, I have clients all the way around the world, from places like Africa, South America, different parts of Europe, UK, a lot spread across the United States and Canada. And I don't do my business locally. I do in some degree, but I mostly do it globally. And that gets into using an e-learning platform for marketing. So as I was evolving as a marketer, a WordPress guy, and a small business strategist and consultant, I started creating courses around that content. Started with just blog posts, but then I got a little more organized and started solving specific problems. So to give you a really specific example, I spent one day on a weekend, used ScreenFlow, recorded a video tutorial on how to build a WordPress site from scratch in a weekend for the absolute beginner, and I published that course on my website, and then I also published it on an aggregator of online courses called Udemy. And on Udemy alone, I just checked my stats. I have 6,250 people in there. And it's a free course. I'm not selling it, but it positions me and helps me, build my authority. And, there's a saying that we've all heard is the best way to learn something is to teach it. So every time I teach something, it gets better. My wife is also a really passionate sustainable agriculture, conservation-based agriculture biologist. We're really into organic gardening, so we started to combine our skill sets of WordPress and marketing and e-learning and her focused in organic agriculture, and we built a platform called organiclifeguru.com where we sell courses about online gardening or organic gardening and permaculture. And our very first sale happened the second night after it was up, and our first customer was in New Zealand. And we've had our courses have sold predominantly outside of the U.S., far away from where I'm at, but we were able to reach an audience who has a very passionate desire and interest in learning those types of things. And that has provided a great source of supplemental income. The business cash flows every month, it grows every month, and it now, teachers and other news outlets come to us because they see our platform and what it can do. But it was just a simple WordPress LMS site. And it's all about just starting and getting over this I have to be the best in the world hang up. It's all about just helping people.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and that's I think that leads into your story a little bit, right? I mean, of why you're passionate and what we're going to do together. And I want to talk about a little bit about that. I want to give the mic back to you because, not to get into the nitty-gritty of our relationship, but basically we've come together with the idea we want to change online education. That is our true why. There's a huge opportunity. There's a lot of different options out there. And I think what you've said is true. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. The Academy theme, the WPLMS crew. So lots of people who have taken this to the first level, and there's a lot of opportunity to improve that. And we're going to do that together with a plugin that we're going to be coming out with in the next few months here. And people can check that out at LifterLMS.com. But before we get to that, I mean, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of that plugin today. But the why for me personally has been, my background has always been in education. Like I mentioned before, my mom was a first grade teacher. My dad was a college professor. So I grew up in a house where education was very, very, very important. And as I went through high school into college, I had the opportunity my senior year of school in my undergraduate business degree. I was an international business major. I had a wonderful dean named Badgett, and she saw in me kind of an entrepreneurial spirit and said, hey, why don't you help me build a new MBA program? MBA education really just needs to change. And this was in 2010, so we observed, like you mentioned, there was a decline in jobs, really. The economy was bad, and there was an increase in people going back to school because the job market wasn't there, so there was actually more demand there. And then if you looked at the demographics, it was people who were between the ages of 20 and 25. They were mainly like millennials, and they had a desire to do things quick, and they also had a desire to travel the world. And we said, okay, well, let's take all of these facets and put them together and create a program. We called it the Millennial MBA, and it was you received your MBA in 15 months, and you got to travel all over the world, every continent. You'd land on every continent other than Antarctica in that 15-month span. So it's about two months in the States and then 2 weeks abroad, just that whole time. And then after that, during that time, I was able to go through that MBA, and I started publishing more in knowledge management, and I was really interested in researching models to depict what's the best way to transfer knowledge from one person's mind to the other. So from tacit knowledge to explicit knowledge, basically saying the knowledge that's in my brain is tacit, the knowledge that comes out, whether it's a book or e-learning class, that's the explicit knowledge. And then how does that come back into someone's mind, and what does life experience and things, is there a way to speed that up? My goal in doing all of that was to see how close can we get to that matrix, like, snap into the back of the head and download. Is that actually possible without technology, just by better ways of communicating? And published some stuff that went to Harvard and Cambridge and really spread. We developed a model for just depicting how that works, which I hope leads the charge for a whole new generation of publishing and research in that world. But all that leads to say, like, I really love education. I think that a lot of the problems that we experience in the world, a lot of the things that happen in, I'm not going to make any political or geo-economical statements, but basically if you look at the world in the poor countries and the countries that have a lot of violence, they also have really, really bad education. And it goes along the lines with a couple other, basic things. I think Charity Water has identified one of the first things that you have to do is give people clean resources like water before they can develop. It just follows Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But quickly after you get those basics met, it comes to education. And it comes to then sustaining education, capturing education, so that the next generations can say, okay, that's what they learned. let's quickly download that into our brain so that we can build upon it. We're really doing that in the WordPress LMS space with all of these pioneers of WordPress LMS plugins. We're coming around with the second generation, and we want to make it really, really easy for people and seamless and intuitive for people to share their information. So that's kind of my story. I'd love to hear a little bit about yours, Chris.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely amazing. And the part you touched on, in my past, I studied abroad in Nepal. I've traveled all over. I've lived in many different states in the United States. I went to the National Outdoor Leadership School and developed as like an outdoor leader. I would say one of those moments for me that really impacted me of learning kind of non-traditionally was in my career. When I became a manager of a helicopter-supported dog sled tour business on a glacier in Alaska that had a lot of responsibility, a lot of people, a lot of customers, and really one of the best known and respected tours in the entire world. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of cut my chops as a leader inside of a business. I was looking for something to learn how to, become that manager, to become that leader. And I had a lot of life experience from outdoor leadership and things like that, but I was kind of hungry for information. So I kind of had to take on my own learning situation where I'm like reading a lot of books, and we all do this. And the amazing thing about a book is that you're taking somebody's like life experience, compressing it into 200 pages, and that value of curation, that's why books are so powerful, and why people who are successful often read a lot. They're essentially doing what you're talking about downloading all this curated content. So through that experience, I became a leader. I became comfortable with being a leader, and also getting over that thing of like, I have to be the best, or who am I to reach the whole world with this thing. I just kind of got over that. And that led me into just exploring. After that, I became I had 2 daughters, and I started working from home and taught myself WordPress and development and marketing and these kinds of things. And as that evolved, along the way, I was blogging about what I was learning. People were picking that up. Once I started curating that content into courses, that's when the results really started to step up. In terms of new leads for my business, new relationships all over the world. And that is the point of curating, which is so valuable today, because there's also this information overload. And that's why e-learning, when done well and with the right tools, can be so powerful, because you're essentially helping people get over all this distracted focus and really taking them through a system to learn and move forward. And so I've kind of been through that by myself, and also working with you and the other team behind the LifterLMS plugin. We're all combining our knowledge and information to give people the tool that I wish I had like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's my journey. And the last thing I'll add about that is there's this really interesting thing going on in education where the institutions, maybe aren't as effective. And the classic example is a computer science degree. The curriculum can't keep up with the skills that people need. So in that market, the e-learning options out there are very evolved. But there's a lot of other markets out there. And the role of what you think of as a teacher in front of a room with a chalkboard is changing. So you can be an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. You can be a teacher of any level and leverage e-learning. You can just be an expert in something, whether it's some kind of mechanics or art, something really professional or something really hobbyist. And you can also just be an online marketer in charge of growing a business or adding new product lines to an existing business through e-learning. So there's so many ways you can come at it, and it's just been a really exciting journey, kind of figuring all this out and just studying it.
Yeah. And it comes back to our passion too, which is fun.
Yeah.
We love it, So cool. Well, I'm going to close this out by saying if anyone has any questions about e-learning LMS, Chris is definitely a guru in his own right. I am quickly learning. But you can reach us directly. My email is joshua at LMScast.com. Chris is chris@lms.com. Our new website where we're housing all these episodes and show notes and things is LMScast.com. And if you want to be notified about our upcoming plugin, you can go to LifterLMS.com. But Chris, before I want to let you close it out by giving a little bit of a soft, preview of what's coming up in the next couple months with that plugin.
Yeah, well, the main vision behind the plugin, which we're calling LifterLMS, is to empower these entrepreneurs, teachers, experts, online marketers with a really powerful tool to generate more income or to simply generate education-based marketing, which can be totally free or paid. So that's what the highest vision for this plugin is all about. And the thing I've discovered in e-learning is it goes pretty custom, pretty quick, the needs of the teacher for their given situation. So we're designing it in such a way that it can apply to these different types of people, entrepreneurs or auto mechanics or, regular high school teacher or graduate program. All these different things is super customizable. And it can also kind of start small with a single person or even scale to a multi-teacher, large, university institution or other corporate environment. So but at the end of the day, it's all about, giving people a tool to build a online e-learning business or to create really valuable education-based marketing.
Yeah, and we have all of that information. We have a lot more information at LifterLMS.com for people to check out. But we're going to be doing a lot of these podcasts. This isn't just something that we're doing for product launch, but it's something that we really want to just provide an outlet in the LMS community. And I think we have an opportunity to provide some really great information. So with that said, though, please contact us if you have any questions about anything or have ideas for episodes in the future. We want to make this really, really valuable. So with that, we'll see you next episode.